Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Happy 9 to 5 by FinFlex. Today, we are back with a new episode, and we're going to be talking about automation and finance. Again, we have our CFO, James, with us. Back again. Welcome.
Hi, how you doing?
All good. How are you?
Yeah, great.
Excited? Back for episode 2?
Yes.
Amazing. And we have our special friend from Pluto Card, founder and CEO Ridwan.
Thank you very much for having me here.
How are you?
Excellent. Yeah, it's a beautiful day and you guys have created such a wonderful space here. Love the podcast, love the first episode. So excited to be here.
Thank you. We are happy to have you here. Okay, so today we're talking about automation and finance, and both of us are coming with different perspectives of how we deal with CFOs. Being, in a lot of engagement with finance teams, what do you think is the challenge that companies are facing in terms of automating the finance department, bringing up this automation change, moving into the modern workplace?
Absolutely. Happy to share more about that. And I think the first thing I want to acknowledge is that not everyone is like James, right? The CFO. And first of all, thank you very much for being a Pluto customer as well, right?
Great product.
Thank you. It really does take a more modern take on being a CFO to be able to think through automation. But let's scratch that for a bit and let's think about what is happening right now in the current situations and what are the roadblocks that CFOs and others face when it comes to automation. So one of the first most important thing is that cash feels nice, right? Mm-hmm. Handling physical cash.
ASMR.
That's right. Yeah, it feels nice, right? Mm-hmm. It feels like you're on control. And one thing we need to understand about the Middle Eastern market is that the Middle Eastern market naturally is a low trust market. Okay, it's unfortunate, right? But it is a low trust market, right? What that means is that executives, managers, etc., they do want significant control over their own processes, right, and over their own flows. So that's where a lot of these like build versus buy questions come in. Build being, I just stick to my current Excel, I stick to my current petty cash, I stick to my current approaches of doing things, right? Buy is you work with service providers who are experts in automation, right? So a lot of that question comes in, but what we are seeing now is that is changing, right? And part of the reason why it's changing is also because of the economic conditions, right? Where because UAE and surrounding areas, the amount of labor that you can bring on to be able to not automate things is, you do have an advantage of that over here. But what companies are realizing is that the more people you hire, the significant more bloat that you have, right? The significantly more operational expense that you get out of that, right? And in addition, it adds a lot of like secondary problems as well, right? And James, I'm sure like you have seen that over the course of your career as well. Do you think that is relevant to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. So I agree with everything you said there. There's a very natural tendency to just hire.
That's right.
And for some CFOs, the dinosaur CFOs, having a huge finance team is their badge of honor. It's like, hey, I've got 25 people. 20 of them sat there typing out invoices, but I've got 25 people working for me. Aren't I great? So there is still that aspect to some people's mentality. But whether I like it, but whether everyone likes it or not, automation is coming. It's happening. Mm-hmm. A lot of the finance jobs that are being done now won't be there in 4 or 5 years' time.
That's right.
And I think there's a responsibility that finance leaders, company owners, employers have to their employees. To start thinking about that, because you can expand the business, you can bring on, many people for not a lot of money. What do you do in 3 or 4 years' time?
Yeah, that's right.
You just have to. You're seeing it in the tech space now, where tens of thousands of jobs are going because people overhired last year on the basis of whatever, and there's there's no moral responsibility to those employees that have now had their ability to provide taken away from them. So automation is going to cause a lot of issues within that side of things. But if it's done properly and at the right speed and the right levels, then you can actually redirect the workforce into a more value-added position.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy to think that it's 2023 and we still do grunt work, right?
Yeah.
Because the peak of human potential is more than that. right, we can achieve more than that. And doing grunt work is not where you should be spending time. One thing that I wanted to add, right, we covered a lot of great points, but one thing that I wanted to add is, again, coming back to the question about trust, right? We talked about the MENA trust market, but one thing that is also true is that the trust in service providers have been low historically. And that is for good reason. If you look at historical products that have been released, or if you look at the user experiences that technology and just good technology in general hasn't particularly been a thing in the Middle East until very recently, right? So until very recently, and only now, we're seeing great companies come up who are experts in that, who are experts in technology, who can create robust, user-friendly, right, and just good products, right, that people can put their trust in, right? Finflex being an example of that. We have been looking at Finflex and using them for a while, and you can see that as part of that, one of the really interesting things is that because you guys are experts in that particular thing, the way you have crafted the experience allows me to have trust in that.
What I've seen certainly in the Middle East market compared to Western Europe is that because there are so many small businesses, the let's stick Oracle SAP in just doesn't happen here, because it's just a complete waste of money for a lot of businesses. You can use the smaller accounting packages, and because there are so many different automation tools that fit into these accounting packages, you can then pick and choose which ones you want to automate, which ones you don't. So you can start with a very small accounting system that does the books in a very easy, compliant way, and then plug in all these different solutions that you find best for you, rather than going down the full ERP solution, which is, okay, when you've got 10,000 employees and you've got a huge business, maybe you do need the bigger system, but up until then.
But then we spoke about trust and how it's something that's still new in the market that we're in, and the different tools that we can bring in. How do we introduce these things to the dinosaur CFOs? There are still a lot of them still around who are reluctant to change, and there's always that stigma that finance and accounting, they don't want to use any different tools, they just want to stick with their Excel, same sheet, same formula throughout the business time. So how do we introduce these changes to the company, and how do we go on about it, really, overall?
It's
a tough question.
It's a tough question because if you've got a CFO that just isn't willing to look into these things, you're going to have a challenge on your hands.
But we have to move forward, right?
Absolutely,
like it's 2023, and we can't be using the same Excel sheet for the past 10 years. Like, what if the person who came up with this formula or came up with this module leaves the company, or something happens to them?
So I think you kind of need to just sell it into the right people, whether it be the chairman or the CEO, or somebody who can influence the CFO. Even maybe somebody further at a more junior level than the CFO, who's going to be more open potentially to these kinds of things. Because I think we discussed this in our last podcast. If you present a good business case, it will get signed off. Okay, so if you can go to the CFO and say, look, we've got this tool here, and by using it we can save all this manpower and redirect that manpower into better things, business partnering with the non-finance functions, whatever that looks like, why would you say no to it? So, and there's always going to be people who just don't want to give up that big team, right? And they enjoy the power trip of, hey, I've got 25, 30 people reporting into me, I'm the big guy. You just got to wait for those people to retire.
Sorry, Zasim, I wanted to add to that, which is that, funnily enough, I have a story around this, where just a few days back, we were talking to this customer, potential customer, and they had about 600,000 dirhams per month worth of unreconciled petty cash. Pretty crazy. 600,000 dirhams for an SME, right? Pretty insane, right? So, when we first sent him an email saying we have XYZ, he wasn't interested, right? And because, again, it comes down to, he has a team of like about 20 to 25 people, right? He loves his team, right? So do we, right? But he's finding that to be a big problem, right? But I think this is where like really strong messaging and again comes back to the business case, right? As to why this is important, right, for you and your team and the wellness of your employees as well is super crucial to get the messaging right? One example of this is that you could just go in there saying that, hey, you will save your company money, right? But actually digging into it, right, understanding their structures, understanding their struggles, having a deep empathy of their problems that they're facing, right, then telling them the exact value prop that you're doing, I think very few companies do, right? You know, when we had to do this, we went to their offices. It was a construction office. We had to put our hard hats on, talk to them, understand their structure, understand who runs what, right? Talk to their employees, see what they're struggling with. You know, the employees told us that, like, yes, you know, they give us pretty cash, but I lose my receipt sometimes, right? And I'm sure similar things have happened to you. Like, as you're doing your customer discovery, as you're talking to your customers, has there been any interesting insights that you have found?
Well, I was just going to say on that point, the issue you might have there is that the company policy could be no receipt comes out of your pocket.
Right.
All right. So how does the employee feel that they've made a genuine mistake?
Right.
And they're going to get penalised for it.
Absolutely.
Or they could get accused of
Absolutely.
theft. You know, so you're putting employees at risk. I mean, petty cash. It's 2023.
Yeah.
There are so many. You know, there are so many ways that you don't need to use cash for your expenses. I think a lot of people don't think of the aspect from the employee's perspective, which is you are putting them at risk.
Yeah.
Right. And they, you know, you can have people going home who are just so stressed out and racked with guilt or fear.
Absolutely.
Because they think they're going to get penalised for something that they just haven't really done properly.
That's right.
You know, so there's loads and loads of things like that where the wellness factor of automation, so often it just comes down to cost, right? And that's important. It's always going to be a cost factor.
Right.
But there's all the other things that you could add into it. You know, you then have a workforce that doesn't have to worry about petty cash. Right. Right. So they're not thinking about petty cash. They're more focused on their jobs. Productivity will go up.
Yeah. So I think the to summarize like the conversation that we just had, right? I think my biggest takeaway, at least from listening to James, was that you really have to approach it from two angles, right? One angle is from a very short-term messaging, like, hey, we can come in and this kind of automation will be able to save you X, right? And the other kind of angle is a more long-term messaging. And that long-term messaging, you will only be able to find when you have deep empathy for your customers and be able to truly dig into how that is impacting each one of those employees. Am I summarizing that properly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool.
That's a great way to sum things up, Ridwan. And I think we have looked at it from a customer's perspective, getting into the nitty-gritty, deep analysis point of view. But overall, for the finance department, James, I also want to hear your point of view. As a department, introducing this change, whether it's top-down or bottom-to-top, what benefits does it bring to the business?
There are plenty of benefits. I think some of the challenges you might have around the automation is that you're effectively saying to people, we're going to automate your job. Okay, which means people are going to be sat there worrying or potentially worrying. But a lot of the jobs that will be automated, or you know, the stuff that will be automated in the near term, those tasks are generally quite boring.
Admin.
It's you know, I've sat there and had to reconcile 2009 bank statements as a junior accountant, and it is boring and painful, and you don't like.
And it limits your creativity, as in what potential you might have.
Oh, it is, and it's you know, you said it early on. It's the grunt work, and it's the really bad grunt work. You know, people are happy to have a whole team of people doing the grunt work, and you're missing out on the value that these people can add. You can say, right, we're going to automate the boring job that you don't like doing, and we're going to get you to do something that's so much more exciting and interesting. How would you feel about that?
Right.
You know. Yes, please. Yeah. I like that. I'm actually excited to come into work. I'm going to come in early now because I'm really interested in what I'm doing.
You're not dreading the day.
No,
waiting for it to end.
Exactly. Yeah. You know, so that aspect is quite an easy sell into the people on the receiving end of this. Yes, there are always going to be some opportunities to reduce cost in the workforce. There's no getting away from that. But as I said, you can retrain people. What I've seen it certainly in the Middle East is the capacity for people to absorb training is enormous because they don't necessarily come from countries that have the strong schooling system that you find in you know, Western Europe or the US, you say to somebody, would you like an opportunity to be trained, in whatever? Yes, please.
Yeah.
It can build their CV. It gives them the opportunity to further their career.
Absolutely.
So there are so many benefits to this. And then you start turning into an employer of choice, because you're not bringing on people to do grunt work. You're bringing on people to do exciting work. You're training them. You're developing them. You're giving them skills that they can then take on elsewhere. And okay, you don't want to train somebody up for them to just leave.
Right.
But, what a great sort of seal of approval for the company for people to sort of go to another organization and say, well, the company I've just left did all these great things. Let's bring them into your organization as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. And we're here talking about the importance of automating processes in different departments. But I also think it's as important to pick the right partner. That you are diving into a discovery, you're doing the scope of work, they're implementing things for you, they're getting to see your information, and you're allowing their solution to run a part of the business for you. There needs to be a certain level of trust.
Right.
So how would both of you go on about picking the right partner here?
Absolutely. And, being a financial ecosystem ourselves, like we work with a lot of different kinds of partners as ourselves, right? A lot of our infrastructure and others, we had to make very careful decisions to be able to choose the right partner, right? And I think the thing that I learned out of doing that and even buying products for our own company is that it is never a bad idea to go with the team that you feel like you trust the most. Or that you feel that understands your business the most, right? I think for me, when it comes to choosing partners, it comes into like 4 different kinds of ways to do that, right? First is, do they understand my business, right? Do they understand their business? They're the best, right? Are they capable of serving me in the long term, right? And will they scale, right? These are the 4 things that I look for in a partner, right? Do they understand my business? Extremely important, right? Because, every structure is different.
Yes.
Every business is different. The business that I am in is completely different from the business that you're in, right? My persona of the people that I'm serving is very different, right? Understanding their needs, wants, desires, right? Extremely well. Very, very important, especially for something that is going to be used by my entire workforce, right? Because it has fundamental changes to the culture and fundamental changes to the technical aspects of all the things that I'm doing, right? Do they understand their business? We have a lot of new booming businesses in UAE right now and Middle East in general, right? A lot of startups, a lot of fintechs, a lot of everything, right? That is happening. But what we see is that there's a lack of subject matter experts actually building such products, right? And creating an ecosystem of learning and things like that on that particular subject, right? It's very easy to take something from a different part of the world, right? And try to replicate it here without clearly understanding how the Middle Eastern market works.
Localization is super important.
Extremely important, right? Because it's very easy to just replicate something from somewhere else, right? And we've seen a lot of companies do that. And that is something that is a big no-no, right? As soon as they see that in a company where you have people who are building the technology, but they don't fully understand the business that they are truly in, right?
They need to walk in that person's shoes or at least have an understanding of what that looks like.
Absolutely.
To say, right, I actually know what the problem is because I've been there and I've seen it and I've experienced it. So I know what the pain points are here. Exactly,
because otherwise it's just too easy to build things that seem the next big thing, right? And, that is why that deep empathy, again, is extremely important. And the only way for you to do that is to truly be in that problem, be a subject matter expert in what you're doing, right? And work with subject matter experts to be able to build that product, right? So that's the second thing that I typically look for, right? Longevity of a partner that you're working with. The reason you're working with a partner is so you can replace your Excel sheet, which is not a longevity solution, right? Yeah. Because as you mentioned before, as soon as the person who built that Excel sheet is gone, right, that is a broken model, right? And to be able to get that all fixed up, completely difficult, right?
And there's also a very childish and ridiculous kind of one-upmanship within accountants for spreadsheets, where they'll look at somebody else's spreadsheet and go, well, I can do better than that. Move it out the way. Right, I'm going to do my own thing and make it better.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that all the time, like we see that not only in accounting as well, but even in general engineering. Overall, you see that one-upmanship all the time, right?
Yeah, and you also have, again, with people using Excel, is that they'll spend 3 hours using Excel to automate something that the job would have taken them 20 minutes anyway. So they just do the job in the first place, or you're having to do that job so often, right? Go and find somebody who can automate it properly, not just don't just rely on your Excel skills to make it better.
100%, right? So that longevity is extremely important to me when I look for a partner, right? And the way to judge that is again through the reliability that they provide as a service, right? And the reliability of their customer support and their account management, etc. And that is actually extremely important, because that tells you that this person or this company is investing in operational things, right? That'll help them scale, that'll help them be a long-lasting company, right? Or
that
a long-lasting
also links
partner.
to team synergy between the partner and your company itself.
Absolutely.
Your team is going to be interacting with this partner long-term basis, so there definitely has to be synergy.
There has to be that synergy, right?
Understanding.
And the last point that I've mentioned was around, so we talked about longevity, and the last point was around scalability, right? Will this solution scale, right?
Yeah.
Because maybe you're an SME right now, right? Maybe you're not going to be an SME forever, right? You will definitely scale up, right? And when it comes to products that impact the general, very core parts of your teams, something like accounting, something like finance, etc. These are very core parts of your business, right? You do want to make sure that you're working with a partner that can scale, right? And scale comes from a lot of different things. Scale comes from the partner being able to grow with you, right? And scale comes from deeply focusing on one niche, right? So we see a lot of these businesses that have come up recently. They will do payables, they'll do receivables, they'll do accounting, they will do 100 different things, right? All at once, right? But that's a very, very dangerous thing to do, right? Because you're
losing essence.
You're losing the essence, you're losing the core persona that you're serving, right? And you are, essentially trying to serve everyone, whereas trying to serve some people very, very well, right? I mean, we had to make that decision ourselves as well. When we started the company several years back, we had to decide whether we're going to be those really fat ERPs, right? Which have pretty much everything you can do, right? Versus deeply focusing on one niche and doing that extremely well, because only then can you scale, right? Would you agree?
Yeah, it's sort of inch wide, mile deep focus on your products.
That's right.
And finding the partner again that does that, and not trying. Somebody says, right, I can do these 5 or 6 things.
Right.
Okay, so you can do 5 or 6 things reasonably well, but I'd rather have somebody who can do 1 or 2 things brilliantly and have multiple partners rather than just having one that does everything.
But that sparks a question in my head. So we prefer to have someone who is specialized in their niche and they know what they're doing and that's their speciality. But that would mean that I'm going to have several partners and I'm going to have different tools. Each department is using something different. But at the end of the day, as finance, I think everyone ends up talking to you. Everything always comes back to finance. There are always invoices. There are always... There's just things that you always have to decide on and other departments have to bring back to you.
Yeah.
So when you're picking the right tool or the right automation, would you go for something that is inclusive, has everything for the entire company, like an ERP? Or would you say, okay, I'm going to go for multiple different tools and if they can integrate, they integrate?
Definitely multiple tools. If it's an SME, multiple tools, because there are so many great products out there now that you can pick and choose. You'll find something that fixes your solution,
right?
And you'll have a choice of many platforms to fix that particular problem. So the ERP thing, it's just a cash drain, right?
And it's so much work.
Because what happens with an ERP? Sorry to cut across you there, but you look at Oracle or SAP. People put that into their organization and try and change it. Okay. And then you get the customization invoice, right? And you're talking, millions of dollars of customization for a large organization. What you should do with those big ERP systems is change your organization to fit the ERP.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
Absolutely.
they're great tools in their own right, and your processes are just a habit. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You know, it's a question of just saying, right, I want a plant pot. Okay, here's a plant pot. You say, oh no, but I wanted a bigger one.
Right.
But that's a plant pot. That will work. That will do the job you want it to do. You want a bigger plant pot because you've had a bigger plant pot, but it doesn't actually serve any purpose.
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, when people bring in these large systems, the customization is just ridiculous. And it's a great way for consultants to earn big fat fees, and therefore for businesses to spend a lot of money. You can just have a load of little systems that do the same thing.
I agree with you.
And they're so much cheaper. And also, as well as you pick the right partner, you get feedback. You get the opportunity to say to them, it'd be great if you could make this change, right? And they say, okay, we can do that because we're agile, we're small, we've got the tech team in-house, we can make these changes. Great, off you go.
Yeah.
Right? You go to Oracle and say, we want a fundamental change to your platform. Yeah.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you have $1 million to spare? We'll do that for you.
They wouldn't even do it. You know, it's just the customization is there, but they just wouldn't do it. So you have that ability to talk to a company that's probably the same size as yours as well. You get that, you know, that agility and flexibility that you wouldn't get with the large ERP. So for me, I go with the small accounting system as the core product and just get all the different bolt-ons that solve the problems that are specific to your particular business at the time.
Yeah. And I think something to add to that is that not necessarily that you will have all your tools that you use in different departments or that do different things in the same department connect to each other, but there are also automation tools that will make that connection for you, like Zapier or Make, for example.
Yeah, I mean, look, I use 4 different platforms in my role as CFO of Finflix, right? And they're all talk to each other.
Yeah.
So it's not a problem that there's 4 different platforms, right?
Yeah.
And the logins are all dead easy. There's no issues around that. So there's no problems. It's just, you know, flipping between different browser tabs. Everything's easy.
Yeah.
You know, you just click up a few buttons, and in a lot of the case, you don't even have to click the buttons.
Right.
You know, the updates are automatic.
Yeah, there's just one dashboard that shows you everything.
Yeah.
And you know, that's another thing, which is that if you do get this like fat, bloated ERP, a big problem with that is that you have to go with a multi-year contract.
Yes.
Yeah. In the world of SaaS and modern software, that seems like a really bad thing to do, right? Especially given that the world is changing so rapidly, technology is changing so rapidly, right? Okay. To be able to sign multi-year contracts with people.
For big numbers.
Yeah.
And so you're in the position where you've essentially, you know, levered the business with a whole load of liabilities or potentially onerous contracts that stretch years into the future.
Right.
Whereas you can pick, you know, a pay-as-you-go style where you can say, right, you know what, we're having to make some changes. So this is one of the changes that we're making. Off we go.
Yeah. And I think just being an SME, you in yourself and in your, like with a lot of small companies, your business module is you are innovating and changing on the go.
Yeah.
So when you have a system that you're stuck with for multiple years, you really can't change your processes and move around stuff. If you want to change something or innovate something, you always have to come back to the point of, oh, but this is how I have to do it on Oracle.
Yes.
So I can't really play around with it.
Right.
So I actually agree with you guys on the point of, you know, having multiple tools, just connecting all of them and having the answers in one place.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Love that. Yeah, thank you.
What do you guys have as pieces of advice for upcoming CFOs, people who just started off their companies?
It's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There can be a lot of room for you to advise, but maybe in the sense of how to start right when it comes with automating your processes. What is the right approach? Because
for me, it'd be building automation from the start. Yeah. Don't build a manual process and then try and automate it afterwards.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
You've then got to unwind a load of stuff, and it's just it gets messy, right?
Yeah.
So just try and automate it from the start. There's enough tools out there that will do whatever you want them to do. Just go and find them, get the processes automated from the start. You're not starting a business to employ 20 accountants, right? You're starting a business to do something different. Automate as much as you can. get the right people in your organization who are open to continued automation as well. And then, you know, you can just build on that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think for myself, like I have 2 pieces of advice for 2 kinds of CFOs, right? So one CFO, if you are just starting your own company, or if you're working at a small company, is James's advice is extremely sound, right? Really think about one word: strategy, right? If you're an SME in this kind of market where we are headed towards a more recessionary environment, you cannot be affording to spend your time on non-strategic work, right? Because you're going to have to look at your P&L very, very deeply. You're going to have to look at your revenue sources very, very deeply. These things take time. These are not that, you know, you just look at the books one day, right? I'm like, all right, you know, chop, like we're done, right? Right? These things take time, right? These things they take very intentional decision making, right? And you can only do that if you have time, right? So that's the first thing that I would do, right? As Jason mentioned, which is that if you're starting out, do really make sure that you're starting off in the right foot, right? The second kind is for people who are probably entering large organizations or like mid-sized organizations. Just remember, you are the CFO and you don't have to take in the processes that already existed, right? So really look into and do a time audit of yourself and your team. Where is my team spending most of their time, right? And if you're finding that your team is actually spending most of their time and that on grunt work, on things that could be easily automated, right? Make the change now, right? During the time that you are entering that period, because just because things have been done one way doesn't mean you have to continue.
Yeah, the worst thing is why do you do it like that? It's just the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. Have you ever challenged that?
Yeah.
No. Right. Okay. Well, we're challenging it now. Right? There are better ways to do it. Let's find one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Great insight and advice, you guys, really. Thank you, James, for being back again.
Yeah, love it.
Would you like to come back?
Absolutely.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Ridwan.
Absolutely.
We were very happy to have you on. Thank you for all of your great insight and advice. And that concludes our episode for today. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.